Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. As always, we're grateful for everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. And these tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn the negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also go to that same web page and download a whole host of audio files or shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words HeartLand Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We'll help people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. Alternatively, if you're available, you can join us most weekdays from 11 to noon Central Time. Go to zoom.us, open up a window, and say you want to enter meeting ID number 853-2357-4173. 853-2357-4173. Or you can use one of the many phone numbers that Zoom makes available and call in. Use that same meeting ID. And you'll be automatically muted when you join. And you can toggle in and out of mute with *6 on your phone. So, here we are again. It's a Tuesday. We have plenty of time for conversations, questions, answers, soliloquies, etc. It's a Tuesday, so there will be a support group tonight from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. It's absolutely free, and all the information you would need to join us is available on the MindShiftersAcademy.org website. So, what's on your mind? What kind of thoughts, reactions did you have to the reading we were doing yesterday? I had a session with one of the brighter, more highly competent people that I know yesterday, and as we were talking about the same themes we were talking about yesterday, women in a patriarchal society, some of the many some of the many patterns in this society which are seemingly invisible to the untrained eye, but reveal themselves if you go looking for them. And you can read people like Rebecca Solnit and others. You can listen to the We Can Do Hard Things podcast, and you'll get your eyes open to some of these patterns. Sometimes when that happens, when we start to recognize how a group of people has been minimized or held in check or brutalized, sometimes people want to jump on a bandwagon of, oh, they've been the victims, and that means X, Y, and Z thing, and the victim phrase and the whole victim mindset comes into their mind. And sometimes even when people deserve and could benefit from support, they push it away because they don't want to be seen as playing the victim. And there's a powerful dynamic that when I think I should know everything, and when I have negative thoughts in my mind because I didn't know something or because I didn't get something in terms of what a lot of people would call right, in quotes, close quotes. When I start beating myself up because I didn't know something or because I didn't get it right, all it means is I'm functioning from a false set of beliefs or comparisons or biases. Now, bias is a powerful word, and I believe Dr. Michael Ryce, he hasn't talked about it in a long time, but I think he has something about bias that he used to talk about where he says, the strongest resonant energy in your system that you're not aware of, that's active in any moment, that's going to drive your behavior in that moment. And if it's unconscious energy that's driving your behavior, that's a bias. David Grutter, who we've had on Mind Shifters Radio, and I've done On Your Mind podcast with him, he wrote a thing about biases. And he writes, we all have biases. That in itself is not a problem, it's just human. What truly is not a problem. But what is a problem is recognizing our own biases. Or if we don't recognize our own bias, or we equate our bias with fact or truth, or we're making our bias more important than expanding our vision. He writes, theologian Richard Rohr's meditations during a recent week, collectively called, quote, recognizing our biases, close quotes. This captures the heart of what I believe drives bias, fuels bias blindness, and opens our perspectives beyond bias. Here are some key quotes from that week of messages. Richard Rohr is quoted as saying, everyone looks at the world through their own lens, a matrix of culturally inherited qualities, family influences, and other life experiences. This lens, or worldview, truly determines what we bring to every discussion, close quotes. Then he quotes Brian McLaren, quote, we all have a whole set of assumptions and limitations, prejudices and preferences, likes and dislikes and triggers, fears and conflicts of interest, blind spots and obsessions, all of these that keep us from seeing what we could and would see if we didn't have them. In other words, if the veils were removed, if the bushel baskets were lifted off of the light, we would see clearly. Another quote from Brian McLaren, quote, our brains find it difficult to rest when we feel uncertainty. So we would often rather search for premature closure on an unwarranted certainty then live with appropriate uncertainty. We may even prefer a pessimistic certainty to the potentially optimistic uncertainty. Close quotes. Well, I think that there's a deep truths in this that ripple out from that statement that come back to safety, because most of us equate uncertainty with danger and certainty with safety. Whether it's accurate or not, most of us have been trained to do that. And some would say that's part of our biological evolutionary model, that what's familiar and we survived it in the past, we're comfortable with it. In a sense, we're more comfortable with it even if it's physically uncomfortable or difficult, because we know we survived it. So it just gives us that false sense of safety and security about we're going to be able to survive because we've been here before, we know this. Then he quotes Jackie Lewis, quote, "Those stories that we will follow are the ones that feel true. They feel like they have continuity in our past or to our past, and that resonate with the trajectory of our lives. We're looking for the story that doesn't necessarily change our minds. We're actually looking for the story that confirms what's already in our minds." Close quotes. Again, Brian McLaren is quoted, "Jesus inspired and abducted people through immersive and imaginative experiences." Through immersive and imaginative experiences, including parables and powerful metaphors. Following his example, we discover that it's usually a far more effective portal out of confirmation bias than purely intellectual arguments. So confirmation bias means I'm just going to look for and only pay attention to the evidence that confirms what I already believe. Even if there's plenty of evidence that would show me that what I'm believing, I'm holding on to as a belief, is false, my confirmation bias doesn't allow me to see it or let it in. One of the best ways around that confirmation bias is a deep experiential exercise or a parable or a metaphor that one works with, that one, like a koan, this do nothing and nothing is left undone. Well, how does that make any sense? And how can I wrap my mind around that if I just hold that in place? Do nothing and nothing is left undone. No ignorance, no end to ignorance. Geez, this doesn't make any sense. If I sit with that, it becomes a portal to deeper understanding. The last quote here is from Jackie Lewis, quote, "The more we bump into the folks who are so-called, quote, other, close quotes, the more we are stretched and the more we are pulled out of our bias." Now, I would contest that here and say, the more we engage with others and we allow ourselves to be pulled out of our bias, we can soften our hold on our bias and we can be pulled into a new awareness of a new perspective. But it doesn't automatically happen. A lot of times people have exposure to their other groups and it ends up in violence and fisticuffs and more being entrenched in each person being entrenched in their own opposite opinion. But she's offering that if we're willing to go out and engage others with an open mind and asking to be taught and stretching ourselves to learn, now we have new truths. We can be pulled out of our bias because we have tangible evidence of the beautiful, powerful creativity of our Creator who made all of this diversity for us to enjoy. Close quotes, Jackie Lewis. So the idea is we have biases. And so what if I load up a bias that says, boy, you know, it's absolutely the death of me if I ever let myself go down the victim road, or I absolutely hate anything to do with the word victim or being labeled a victim, or I wouldn't be able to survive it if people saw me as playing the victim card. That's a bias. If I pour my mind energy into those things, that becomes a bias that I don't realize covers my perception. And I believe that's part of what was happening for several people I've talked to over the past couple weeks, several weeks now, about all of these awarenesses that come from reading Rebecca Solnit and listening to the On Your We Can Do Hard Things podcast and listening to the book by Megan Watterson about the girl who baptized herself and the story of Paul and Thecla. Several of the people that I've talked to about this recoil because they think all we're going to do is start a political movement of hatred against the patriarchy. And that's a bias that prevents them from looking at, oh, wait a minute. If this is a pattern that's existing in the culture that's hidden from conscious awareness for most people, and it's affecting my ability to function or what I think about myself, I want to understand it better so I can be freed of its negative influences. But to do that, I have to work with my bias. I have to work with the negative emotional states that get generated when that bias kicks in. I have to be willing to dismantle my fear or my anger or my hurt or my bitterness or my confusion before I decide what action to take, because otherwise I'm flying blind. Or I'm driving the car with a, completely opaque bag over my head. I can't see where I'm going. So the point we're trying to make is that the culture, and even to some degree the economy, is set up to function better when people believe the basic party line. And if you can understand how, I love one of the things Rebecca Solnit talked about. She said, men made up standards that were favorable to them and then declared this is the Creator's preference, this is what's best, this is the most valuable, this is the most powerful, etc. If you can understand that every standard we have talking about how men are better or better qualified for things than women, and some of the things that I've read here in the past few months, whether they were from articles that people had sent me or things I'd found on the internet, things that get served up because I clearly have trained the algorithm that I'm looking for things in a spiritual vein or whatever. If you understand that it's not a rare thing for women and their opinions to be minimized. Then you can start to see how those very beliefs feed your own negative view of yourself or your own negative projections about your potential for success in a certain area. Here's another one where there's an article about Rebecca Solnit, who wrote these words: as a quiet challenge to a pattern many women knew too well. She noticed how often women were asked to wait, to absorb, to understand, to smooth over situations shaped by decisions they never made. She saw how patience becomes a requirement rather than a choice, how calmness is praised while discomfort is dismissed. The quote struck a nerve because it named something rarely spoken aloud. Women are encouraged to be reasonable even when the circumstances are not reasonable. They're asked to carry emotional weight, to mediate conflicts, to soften the edges of other people's actions. They're told that endurance is strength, even when endurance becomes a burden. Solnit's line invites a different kind of clarity. It asks readers to notice the invisible expectations placed on women in families, workplaces, and communities. It suggests that responsibility should belong to the one who creates the problem, not the one who happens to be closest to it. It reminds us that patience is powerful only when chosen, not demanded. Her words resonate because they open a door to honesty. They allow women to say, "This is not mine to fix," and to do it without guilt. They encourage fairness over silence and self-respect over endless understanding. Rebecca Solnit gives language to a truth many have felt but could not articulate. She reminds us that recognizing what is ours to carry is not defiance, it's dignity. And the quote that started all this was, "Women are expected to be endlessly patient with problems they did not create." So over the years, and especially in the past few months, where I've been reading articles that shine a light on this perspective, I get pushback from people because they think, probably for most of them, because they think either they have to generate blame or they think I'm generating blame as I bring up the topic. And perhaps part of the issue is it takes practice to be in this world, at least in the Western culture, and live life sidestepping blame, acknowledging it when it comes up and ignoring to buy into it, to understand that it's a luxury item. It never leads to the constructive or productive resolution to a problem. So when I catch myself in thoughts of blame, I take a breath, I turn the focus inside, I cancel the goals, and I let it go. I just chuckle at it. Oh, there I go again, in the blame. So now I've sidestepped the blame, and now I can just observe. And what I observe is so powerful in helping me respond intelligently in the moment. What I believe is not useful in helping me respond intelligently in the moment. It's dead weight, it's old baggage, it's living in the past. So, comments, questions, answers, testimonials, please pipe up. Let me know how this is landing for you, if it's landing for you. I was trying to look here quickly for one of the other articles I shared. Okay, Susan F., go right ahead.
Susan F., I love what you just said. What I believe, and I don't know if I copied exactly, but it really landed. What I believe is not helping to be the highest intelligence in the moment.
It can't.
Oh my gosh, because, to be present without thought and let the moment reveal itself. That's so landing. And all of my stories, past lives, all of it it's allowing to what's to be revealed just now and being present. And I was thinking when you said that, just to be able to observe through Ruka Dakuta, just being in the heart and in the higher mind and with the breath, and the answers and the highest intelligence comes from there. And that's hard to do when we've been so ingrained in in the beliefs, patterns, confirmation biases, all of our stuff, to just drop all of that and be here now.
And the fundamental process and tool in this work for me is that developing that observer that can be like a little, little man or woman on my shoulder watching what's going on around me and watching my thoughts about it, and just curious about that.
Yeah.
And as soon as that watcher on my shoulder notices any level of tightness or tension or negative emotional state in me, I just stop everything. I stop the thought process until I've dismantled or diffused that energy. I'm not seeing enough clearly to warrant a behavior, a speech, an action. So the primary tool for me is this awareness that I've got a built-in alarm system that's trying to educate me about misthoughts, misperceptions inside me. It's not there to educate me about problems in the external world.
Exactly. And finally, even you saying this to me today, or this coming into my reality today, it's exactly true. And obviously I have the brain cells to perceive it, and it's really landing. And the idea for today is there is no peace except the peace of God. There's nothing, just being in silence. It talks about number 10. Now is there silence? Seek no further. You have come to where the road is carpeted with leaves of false desires, fallen from the trees of hopelessness. You saw it before. Now are they underfoot? And you look up and on towards heaven with the body's eyes, but serving for an instant longer now. Peace is already recognized at last, and you can feel it soft embrace, surround your heart and mind with comfort and with love. And
are you reading from Course in Miracles?
Yeah, page 385, number 10. Yeah, it just feels, I just feel there's an element of relief because I feel like I'm stopped running. And what you said about women and the conditions, it is ingrained because I grew up in a very misogynistic family where women's opinions weren't valued, all those things. And my whole career mostly has been in the male-dominated industries. So there's, as you were speaking, there was something about me that always still believed I had to prove myself to men. And it's all a lie. It's a false, completely false, illusory. There's nothing to prove to anybody. But I could see when you were speaking and what you were saying and sharing yesterday, I was like, holy cow, did I ever buy into the story?
Yeah, we can only learn what we've been taught.
Yeah, I bought into it, and I've walked with that illusion that men somehow, and I'm just unraveling this right now, it's being unpacked, somewhere in my psyche that women are inferior to men. Women, and so interesting because also as I'm speaking, this ties in when I was at the intensive, Michael helped me realize I mistook feminine energy for the behavior of women, and I mistook masculine energy for the behavior of man. And so now I'm coming into right alignment with that. So this is now up, what you're sharing and being the beautiful mirror for me to look at all this, to put it in its proper filing. So deeply. And the patriarch in it, I was marinated in it. And then that whole distorted view, blockage to truth that I was less than. I believed it my whole life because I'm not masculine. Even saying that out loud. Yeah.
And in the moment where someone recognizes that and they generate anger, the best course of action that I could recommend is use tools to dismantle your anger.
Yeah. It's not anger anymore, it's sadness.
Okay,
it's actually,
but then use the tools to dismantle the sadness. So it's the idea of if there's an emotional state that gets generated that's less than calm or compassion, then my first step is to dismantle it because I'm not seeing clearly when those things are up, distorting my view.
Mm-hmm. It's actually, I felt two feelings. One, well, sadness came in. I just felt it because tears came. But there's a deep relief underneath that. Because there's an opportunity to truly perceive the truth. The truest truth through this mind filter. So so I really appreciated what you shared yesterday and then continuing today. On time.
It's fascinating. Michael Ryce used to have the little story, the little vignette that he would put in his talks about if you're driving down the mountain late at night and it's, no bright moon, it's just pitch black, and you're winding down the mountain road and all of a sudden your headlights go out. What's the best thing to do? Well, if you're really alert and you've been on that road, many, many times over the last 40 years, you might say to yourself, oh, I think I know where I am on the road, and about 30 feet, it veers off to the right. I think I'll just keep driving. And you would not do that. Right? You would turn the engine off. You would hit the brakes. You would stop moving when you can't see where you're going, especially in a treacherous situation like that. Michael's using the mountain road as this. Everybody can recognize the treacherous nature of that terrain and being in a vehicle, etc., and not being able to see. Well, these days we're in the winter months here in the Northern Hemisphere, and we've got snow and whiteout conditions and, driving rain that might hit. So what happens when we're in a car? Those of us that are bright and not driven by some kind of a cultural need to achieve something beyond our capacity, those of us who are driving a car when a whiteout condition happens, we stop driving.
Yeah, and I didn't do that many times. I see that goes to show because, we drive through it and I still do sometimes. So there's an opportunity.
But if we can use that mindset to as a template for assessing our own inner comfort and emotions, then we can say, oh, my emotions are the warning sign that I need to dismantle my emotions before I move forward if I want any chance to see clearly. Yeah. That's all my emotions are there for, to tell me I'm off the mark or my lights are out.
So it's a warning indicator, you're saying, just like would be in our car, the light goes on, it's a warning, oh, sadness, or oh, tears.
Right. And in my mind, I've been conditioned to believe that means I need to scan the environment and figure out who I need to attack or run away from or bribe or seduce to get them to change so I don't have to feel what I'm feeling. We want to reprogram that so that alarm is tied to a wiring that says, oh, take a breath and turn inside and ask yourself how you're creating this emotion.
Yeah.
And or ask yourself, what are you making this situation mean? Yeah. And as that emotional state gets dismantled and allows the veils to be removed and allows a clearer understanding of actuality in the moment, then I choose my response. I'm going to be infinitely happier with the results if I develop that pattern.
Yeah. That's right on point. So thank you very much for that. And like I said yesterday, it's just everything that's being shared is reflecting so many things and allowing me to go inwards deeper and deeper. Obviously a new level of vitality. So that's wonderful.
Well, I'm glad that you're experiencing it that way. something's niggling at my mind that I might have forgotten something that I might have wanted to say today. So let me just open it up to invite others. We're talking about if, as I'm presenting these articles or books to read, or the book like, the book about Paul and Thecla, or the book about Thecla, the girl who baptized herself by Megan Watterson, if you, as a female, are starting to get emotional or defensive, or you don't like the way the topic is going, and if it has anything to do with a negative emotional state, please let us know what that's like for you, and consider the invitation to dismantle your emotional state before deciding what your biases might be and or how accurate your belief might be when it's negative.
Can I just add one more thing? It just came up around, because within each of us, we hold the masculine and feminine polarity within our being. And if we're projecting in the outer world towards the masculine energy, or even, I'm going to say men, and holding hate and all those things, exactly what you're saying is so true, because we have to go inwards and look what we've been denying and dissociating from in our own being. And I'm going through a process right now of an inner Heros journey, Heros Gamos journey, which is the unification of the masculine and feminine within. And that's to be done in love, equally, in harmony between the two, the depth of harmony, and there's a closed circuit that happens with that. And so exactly what you're saying feels true for all of us, to look within if we have any projections in the masculine outwards. That's the biggest opportunity to go inwards, to find what's holding us in separation from ourselves.
Well, my mind wants to throw out some ideas around how you're describing masculine and feminine as opposites or as polar.
Well, I don't think, when it's actually one, it would be the way that I know it now. And
Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
I'm just telling you what my mind wanted to do.
Got it. Okay.
I'm not telling you, hey, you said this wrong. I'm just telling you. What my mind said is, they're just words.
Yeah.
Just concepts that we made up. And if you take Rebecca Solnit's observation that men created these rules about what natural law was and what was best in order to favor the qualities that men naturally had. Think about this. The words masculine and feminine, they're just words.
Yeah, they are. Thank you.
And everything that's been poured into our intellect about trying to understand them or separate them or see them as different or see them as complementary or whatever it is all just thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that thought, whenever it leads to tightness or tension or upset, is in error.
Yeah.
Or is at least incomplete.
Yeah.
And what I know. Go ahead.
So go ahead. What I know now, there's the breath, and there's the in breath and the out breath. That's what I know, and that's masculine and feminine in my mind. It's just expansion and contraction. That's it. That's where I'm at these days.
Michael has one of these glitches in his thought process and talking about it. We've all got them different places and ways. But the one I'm referring to with Michael in this position is his understanding, or his ability to communicate effectively his understanding about the difference between a word in Aramaic that's been gendered feminine versus masculine. And Michael misses the deeper teaching there when he says she.
Yeah.
And at least in my mind, in the mind of quite a few people that I've talked to who listen to him, he's engendering this feminine, female type quality to X, Y, or Z. In this case, we'll be talking about Ruka Dakucha, the feminine elemental spirit. Well, if someone says the phrase, here's a feminine elemental spirit, from what I've been taught by Dale Allen Hoffman and two other people that know about linguistics or whatnot, is that the person who says the phrase feminine elemental spirit is double speaking unnecessarily. Because an elemental force is what they call feminine. It's been gendered feminine in that language, but it has nothing to do with the genitalia of a man or a woman. Bald head or long hair, bulging muscles or massive intellect. Got nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with whether or not the thing talked about can be physically felt, seen, and measured, or it's ethereal. Well, only.
Oh, you cut out for a second. There was a couple of words I missed. You froze up.
So, a person who says a feminine elemental force is double speaking unnecessarily. So, from the ancient Aramaic, if you said a feminine force, or you said an elemental force, you'd be saying the same thing. Because the force talked about, if it's gendered feminine in the Aramaic language, it means it's not solid that you can feel with your five senses. It's an internal appreciation of, an internal experience of your own or the outside event that you're having an experience of internally. So is your breath that you can feel on your hand masculine or feminine? It's masculine. The breath, the actual air moving out and hitting the hand that can be felt, that's something I feel with my five senses. My experience of having the breath moving can't be measured. That's the feminine. So when something is gendered feminine, and the ta after a word in ancient Aramaic is one of the ways that Michael says it gets gendered feminine, it means what you're referring to is not a solid physical thing. That's all. It doesn't mean what you're referring to is a masculine thing or a feminine thing. Again, these are all just words we've put on these to try and point at different experiences.
Thank you.
So it's completely without gender, the way we talk about gender here in the Western culture. The man with the testicles and the woman with the uterus. It's got nothing to do with any of the gender issues. It has to do with a level of perception that's either hard and physical and able to be acknowledged by the five senses or not. It's real, but it's an internal experience. And as you're bringing up so beautifully the idea of all of these things, the masculine, feminine, every time we try and talk about it, even if we're trying to balance things out or right the old wrongs, people get triggered. Why? Because they've got all kinds of emotional loadings of meanings for this word versus that word versus this belief system versus that belief system. And again, the invitation in this work is, if you notice those emotions coming up in you, the invitation is to make it job one to dismantle those emotions before spinning in thought, before speaking or acting. Because you're almost guaranteed to like the results better if you do it in that order.
Thank you. I'm glad I said what I said, because you gave even deeper truth there. I appreciate that.
You're welcome and deserving. Thank you. We've got 15 minutes left if we want to use them. I don't know exactly what happened, but I was checking for my the upload of yesterday's podcast, and it didn't load. it's still not available through Apple Podcasts for whatever reason. So there's a glitch in the system I'm going to have to explore. And I will make the commitment to do that as time allows and get yesterday's Mind Shifters Radio published to the podcast platforms and today's as well once it becomes available. So how can we support you? What's on your mind? What would be a useful direction for the next 14 or 15 minutes? I will put in a plug for the book, The Girl Who Baptized Herself. And if you think you know all there is to know about the Christian, the early Catholics, and the male-dominated church as it exists, you might thoroughly have your rafters shaken, and you might thoroughly enjoy the book titled The Girl Who Baptized Herself by Megan Watterson, Megghan Watterson. And the book is really a lot about Megan's exploration of who Thecla was and how Thecla refused to buy into the cultural standards, and she did so not for political reasons, but for internally, personally held reasons, and what it triggered in her life, what it brought on for her. And in the analysis that Megan does, she talks about how the level of change that most people see is at the physical level, and that's several layers beyond the change that had to happen within Thecla so that she could start to question these fundamental beliefs about the culture she grew up in, fundamental beliefs about the value and role of women, fundamental beliefs about women and autonomy. She had to have a shift within her several levels before she started acting in a way that would let people understand she's not buying our story. And what is that? Well, that is this willingness to turn inside and then trust what you find in there. Turn inside your own heart and mind. Turn inside with the knowledge that if you turn inside and find pain or fear or sadness, it means you're not seeing the whole picture yet. And or it means that you're buying into really errant beliefs. And so if you use the feedback that you get when you explore internally as an indicator that if you're into compassion, if you're into respect, if you're into your own bliss state, you're probably headed in the right direction. But if it's going into anger or bitterness or resentment or drinking poison as you think about others, you're probably not headed in the right direction. And if you can learn to sit with that internally, the rewards are well worth it. I just finished another interview this morning with a gentleman who had a 4 or 5 day crisis of crying and hallucinating, and because he had some experiences of alternative ways to think about this, he said to his friends, I'm not going to go to the hospital. I just need somebody to be here to support me as I go through this. And at about the 4 day mark, he realized, okay, this was good. I got a lot out, a lot of energy moving, and it's time to move on. And then he decided to take a little bit of a medication and help calm the system down. and then dive into an exploration of whatever he could do at a physical level to support his body's energy system calming itself, his central nervous system, to get it stabilized and calm. And then he did those things. He actually dove into the good self-care, and he had tremendous personal and spiritual growth through that process. And I had a similar situation. I haven't talked about it probably in years here on the internet show, but when I was in graduate school, I had a period of time where I was so, I'll say driven. I was so much driven by the, what I thought at the time was simply my loving nature, going out and doing nice things for people on a regular basis, that I had scheduled myself. I was in grad school taking a full set of classes, 16 hours of classes. I was working 3 jobs, one of them almost full-time and 2 of them part-time. And the only way I could get those jobs, each of them would only hire me if I said I'll work weekends and holidays. So I'm in grad school, and I'm working these 3 jobs and going to school full-time, and we come to the holidays, and this is in my 2nd year of grad school, and we're finishing the first trimester, and I look at my calendar, and I'm booked solidly from 7 a.m. Sunday morning around the clock to 3 in the afternoon on Wednesday afternoon. Around the clock. Now, people can't even wrap their minds around how that would happen, but I'll just tell you that one of the jobs was at a hospital where it could have been the 7 to 3 shift, the 3 to 11 shift, or the 11 to 7 shift. So I could have worked all of it at the one hospital. But I didn't. I also sold wildlife art at Woodfield Mall, and that could run from anywhere from 9 a.m. to 10 at night when they closed. And then the other around-the-clock job I did was I would be on the suicide hotline in another town. And so the end result was I said yes to everybody to try to help everybody, and nobody was happy with me because I couldn't be in 2 places at once. So I was late for this one, and then I'd be late for that one, etc. So that led me to go into analysis, to get some therapy, to straighten out what's going on here, and to drop out of going from school full-time with 2 or 3 part-time jobs to just 2 or 3 part-time jobs and part-time grad school. At one point in time in that process, engaged in weekly psychoanalysis with a Jungian psychoanalyst, and doing a lot of dream analysis and journaling. And if I wasn't actively doing homework or working at one of my jobs, I was doing some kind of processing. And I reached a point at which, for the better part of a week, if I wasn't sleeping, I was on the couch crying. And at different points in time, I thought, this is what they say about people when they go crazy and then they find them walking the streets naked at 3 in the morning. And then I'd get into a panic. What if I can't pull out of this? What if I never figure out why I'm crying? Or what if I never stop crying? And the only thing that let me just stay there and stew in it was the thought, well, at least now I'm plugged into Joe, my psychiatrist, and he'll know what to do if they find me walking in the streets. They'll put me in some hospital and he'll sort it out. That was the only thing that allowed me to sit in that for as long as I did. Today, I can't tell you. Did it last 2 weeks? I don't know. I think it was under a week. And I remember specifically that I was laying on the couch cushions that I had recovered in brown corduroy fabric. I'd hand sewn it, not hand, but I had a sewing machine, and I'd sewn it by hand with the machine. And I laid there on those cushions on that couch that had been, recovered this way by my own efforts, and sobbed and cried and screamed when no one else was in the apartment for the better part of a week. And I can't tell you to this day anything about that other than what I've already told you, is I just allowed myself to stay there with the comforting thought that, yeah, but if they find me walking the streets naked talking about aliens or whatever, Joe can help me. And so I allowed myself to stay in it and let all those tears and energies process through and fuel my journaling and fuel my dreams and then my dream analysis. And in that process, I moved through stuff and got insights I'm not sure I could have gotten any other way. But it was just a matter of being willing to feel whatever was there and to question openly without the analysis, without the driven imperative that I've got to find an answer, to just let it be what it is. And eventually, if I remember correctly, over time, it got easier to move out of those tearful episodes. I didn't feel as stuck in them, and I could let them come, and then if the phone rang or somebody needed me, I could dry up the tears and move on. And I just saw it as part of this unfolding that was okay, rather than a sign of pathology that needed, hospitalization or medication. As I look at it now, I realize I'm quite fortunate that this happened way back when it did, because back then they didn't have anywhere near as many medications that they promote for the use of anxiety and depression and psychosis as they do today. So I probably would have been facing a tremendous amount of pressure to drug myself into oblivion. And probably I would have faced pressure to drop out of grad school, etc. So, it is what it is. Well, I looked up and realized we have just a few minutes left. Thank you all for being here. If no one has any comments or questions, I'll just remind us that there will be a support group tonight from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. All the information you would need to join us is available on the MindShiftersAcademy.org website. I'll also remind us that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I'd like to share the observation that every single time things did not go the way I thought they should, they always worked out far better than I ever thought they could.